not really. I mean, we had a lot of good conversations with a lot of different people, things that we need to do better. Obviously, the specifics of what we have to do kind of remain in-house, but, we know we have to play better, and so we will.
When you can take a step back for like a couple days and just maybe get off like the immediate into the next opponent, does it help you to identify some of those things?
Yeah, look, I mean, when you have a few extra days, it kind of gives you a little bit more opportunity to really, kind of dive into some of the things. I will say, from an offensive perspective, situational football, I think, is one thing that has to be better. Because I think, like I said, the last couple of weeks, I feel like there's been, I think we moved the ball at times, and yet we stall out in the red zone or we're unable to convert third down. So, that's something that we've, kind of taken a look at and figuring out some things that we can do better in those areas.
Is it fair to say that you all need these 2 days?
Yeah, I think so. I think, obviously came in a good time for us and gave the players an opportunity to kind of reset a little bit, and us as a coaching staff as well. And so I think we all utilize this time to kind of reflect on what we've done over the first 7 games and where some areas that we need to improve. And so we're hard at work now on getting those areas improved.
What trends have you noticed in the previous 2 games where your defense hasn't played the full 4 quarters that you guys were able to correct in a short time?
I'm not sure I totally understand the question.
Well, had a bad first half against Houston and then same kind of similarity against Jacksonville. How do you turn that around?
Yeah, we got to start faster, and so I think that kind of boils down to our ability, defensively to execute a little bit better. I don't think there's any one thing that, I was able to identify like this is the cause or the issue, other than they've been able to create a few explosive plays early on in games. So I think we got to be better there.
Did you determine any substantial changes in coaching staff, personnel, or anything that will be noticed right away?
No. We'll, if we decide to make some changes, we'll let you know. But
do you find that it's easier to make the adjustments with the same group instead of adding new variables and things like that? Is that an easier thing to try to address?
Well, yeah. I mean, look. I mean, you get in the middle of the season, and there's generally not a lot of people from outside your building that are coming in that are going to make, significant changes. So we've got our guys, and we're going to be hard at work at trying to fix some issues.
What can you share? How close do you think you are with getting Derek Carr specifically on page with this new offense and getting the best out of it?
Yeah. Look, again, I mean, I think we've been closer in the last couple of weeks. And I think, we've been better up front, and yet I think we have to be better up front. So look, I think we're closer, but we need to start, seeing some better results.
When you see some of the frustrations boiling over on the field and stuff like that, what do you guys have to do to make sure that doesn't become a thing and kind of
make sure we're on the same page? If we're on the same page and everybody's operating the same exact way, then you don't usually have those things. So yeah, we got to be on the same page.
Was that something that had to be addressed in particular? I mean, some of it seemed to...
I think there's a lot of that I think there's a lot of that we've talked about. And then ultimately, it's really moving forward. Do those things, get corrected?
There's, obviously saw Minshew last year in Philly, same play caller there. They do some kind of similar things that they did that game against.
Yeah, there's probably some similarities there in terms of what they're doing from a schematic standpoint. I think the last few days have been spent more on us than they have been, on Indy. So it's probably a little early for me to, give you a real good evaluation on, where I think they are. Because I think, it's, over the last few days, it's been more about us.
You mentioned that over the past couple of weeks, feels like things are a little bit closer. Can you highlight a couple of the things that demonstrate that?
Well, I just think, when you look at it and the ball's, getting down the field, we've been able to amass some yards, but we haven't gotten, the finishing results. And that's where I, talk about early on, situational football and being better on, third down and being better in the red zone. And if we get better in those areas, then we'll be able to convert more, and we'll be able to finish off, more of these drives.
And do you feel comfortable that some of the or that the kicking game as well will kind of improve?
Look, I think that has to be better. And I know that they're, not in age necessarily, but by experience, they're young players. But we have to make our field goals, and we got to, in the critical moment, we got to be able to get a punt off to, change the field. So I think that's all part of, what we're looking at.
Is Juwan Johnson's injury kind of followed like a timeline that y'all were expecting with that?
Yeah, I think, I'm expecting him to, hopefully be back this week. Maybe a little bit limited early on in the week, but I think he's at a point now where, I feel pretty confident that there's a good chance that we'll have him available.
If you could add him back to the line, like what sort of element does he bring that y'all kind of had to miss the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think, he kind of has a little bit of receiver to him in terms of how he runs his routes. And so I think there's an element to the passing game that I think he can bring to us. Although I feel like, Taysom's made some real strides in the passing game over the last couple of weeks. So, hopefully we'll be able to get him back in the mix. I think it just adds another weapon that we can utilize.
Yeah, when you say get everyone on the same page, is that like receivers spending more time with Derek after practice to get more?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that's included in that. I think some of the things that we've talked about is in terms of how we meet, how we prepare, spend a little bit of time after practice. Some of those things that I think we've looked at a lot of different things, and so. We're going to incorporate a few of those things as we go through the next few weeks, and hopefully that'll help us to, make sure that we're on the same page.
You mentioned it, I think it was a couple weeks ago, that you expected growing pains, and it kind of wasn't a surprise necessarily what was going on over on the offensive side. Are you still kind of in that time frame, or is it now?
I think it's time for those to be done with.
What would you say, sort of just the demeanor of the team is?
I think our guys came in, with a good demeanor today. And I don't think demeanor's ever really been, the issue. I think we've had really good practices. I just don't think we've performed on game day as well as we need to, and so I think we're going to have to take some of those things that we're working on in practice, and we're going to have to get those. Executed in the game, and I think there's a lot that goes into that.
If those things aren't done with, then like, what would be the next steps from?
Yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Offensive line had a couple of injuries, of course, but the way that the three guys stepped up during the last game, have they played their way into maybe getting some spots when the other two come back?
Well, I thought, I thought Cam Irving did a nice job coming in. After only being here for a couple of weeks, Andrus probably blocked their best player for a majority of the game, playing tackle for the first time in a while. So I think we got to get all our guys healthy, and then we'll make a determination on who's going to be out there.
Would there be any possibility that Hurst could come back next week or two, or is that just like a
well, yeah, possibility, yes. I don't know where we're at right now with him, but Yeah, I mean, is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. We'll see how we go this week.
Why, what has led to Alvin getting like 30-plus touches, even when you had all three running backs up in this game? I mean, is that go with the hot hand, or is it game planning wise, those guys weren't quite, I mean, was that the expected ratio, I guess, going into the last two games?
Well, I think, going into this past game, Kendra had a little irritation in his shoulder in pregame, and so that kind of limited exactly what he was, kind of able to do. And so there was already a thought of kind of a pitch count for Jamal coming back off the, hamstring. Hopefully we'll be able to get those reps evened out a little bit more.